podcast.
It was our own Pavel Chekhov who first said, "Guess who's coming to dinner?" I have to wonder what he would say about the guest dropping by the Enterprise this week. Let's get back to our strange new summer, shall we? It's 7 p.m. Pacific. It's Monday night. We're here. You're right there with us. It's Mission Log Live. I'm John Champion.
And I am Charlene Schmidt, sitting in for Heather Ray Barker tonight. And it is hard to keep track of all the chickens that come home to roost in tonight's episode. And it is Under the Cloak of War.
Ooh.
So
Yeah.
please feel free to join us tonight with your comments, your questions. And we look forward to exploring the details of Federation and Klingon diplomacy with you.
Yes, you heard Char. You click on the Zoom link that's in our chat or use the meeting and passcode that you see on screen there, and then that'll send you right to the Earl Green Room before joining us on air. Ooh, Char, I'm going to get in one of these early tonight. I'm going to say if you hit exclamation point commands, then you'll get all the details and everything else. So yeah, do that if you're in the chat.
Yeah, play with the machine. Do it.
That'll connect you. Exactly.
Yeah, and before we get to everybody's calls, let's say hi to everybody who's in the chat, which is hopping tonight. So hello, everybody at YouTube land. Hi to BC and Miles Wilburn, Paul Harveth, Alan, Quasar Sniffer, a.k.a. John, Jim McMahon, Paul Wright. Oh, we've got two Pauls.
Excellent.
Where's our third?
We're on
we
our
need a hat
way.
trick.
Yeah. Oh, I
Brandon's
see Chuck.
here.
Foz. Welcome, Foz.
Hey, Foz Rotten. Love that name.
Yeah, all right. Brandon, everybody, excellent. So good to see everybody. And by the way, you mentioned Jim, and I feel a bit remiss here because it was Jim's birthday the other day. So happy belated birthday to you, Jim. And one other, our very own Andy, who a little bit late to stay up for this show, for the live show. She's in Norway. So happy birthday to you, Andy.
Yeah, middle of the night for her. So happy belated birthday. I believe their birthday was on Saturday.
Yes, correct. Oh, and by the way, Peter joining us, dropping in there. So yeah, it's active. People are chatting, and then we can't wait for you to chat with us. And hey, while you're all there, if you haven't done so yet, or if you're listening to this later, remember, click subscribe to the Roddenberry Entertainment channel, like this video, tell us who you are. By the way, if you're in the chat, we'd love to hear from all of you. We want to make sure that you know about the next great Roddenberry show on YouTube, which, I mean, it could be this, could be something else, could be something we haven't even disclosed yet. But speaking of upcoming Roddenberry YouTube and Roddenberry podcasts, Char, what's happening in the world of podcasts this week?
So, do you remember when there were Maquis on Voyager?
Wait, what? Huh?
It was a while ago, but guess what? Mission Log does remember.
Yes.
I remember because I've listened to every episode you've done.
Okay.
And every now and then, guess what? Star Trek does too.
Ooh, wow.
And we're going to wrestle with this one more time with repression this week.
Yeah.
So that's going to be interesting. In season 7, the Maquis. Okay, we've not heard about that for a few seasons. All right.
No.
So, in the meantime, hope you all enjoyed Drive, which you gave a nice, good ripping, you and Norm, which I thoroughly enjoyed.
Well, wait, we did. And then, by the way, you dropped into the Discord chat and absolutely dropped the mic. So, very glad for that, too. Thank you for joining us there.
Oh, we had a good time, as we always do. But sometimes there's an episode that just so deserves to be dissected to shreds, and Drive was just one of those where we were all really here for it. And you know what? Hey, while you're playing with those commands, use the command mission log in the chat. You can find out more about the episode. How cool is this?
I like that a lot. Okay, well, this week, Genealogy released a very special episode. They all are, but this one in particular. Today's show is about DeForest Kelley and Gene Roddenberry's connection, and it is with none other than our resident Trekspert and D. Kelley enthusiast, Dr. Trek, Larry Nemechek. Now, be sure to listen and check out the show notes for an excellent recently discovered reel of D. Kelley pitching the Gene Roddenberry pilot 333 Montgomery. So Earl dropped that in the show notes. You can pick it up at missionlogpodcast.com or just, right there in the show notes where you find the show. Genealogy will take a short hiatus after this week, but stay tuned because we have a special announcement coming up in tonight's live broadcast about what's in store for the upcoming holiday. And remember, use command genealogy, leave out the A, genealogy to find out more. Yeah.
Don't mess this up, autocorrect, please.
No. Right. It does so often when I'm taking notes. All right. This week, the Trek Files. We had our first look at Discovery as it kicked off the modern franchise era of Trek with our special guest, Adam Kotsko, who wrote the academic study Late Trek, the Final Frontier in the Franchise Era. Great episode. Listen to that for sure. We talk about fan service and maybe why that's not such a bad thing. It's very cool. He had a great chat with Larry on that. And next week, the season finale features none other than Jonathan Frakes. And when you get him and Larry in a room and they start chatting, it's magic. So don't miss that next Tuesday when that comes out. We'll wrap up the season, and then we will be back after a few weeks hiatus. Use the command !Trek Files to find out more.
Ooh, so much good stuff coming down the pipe here. Wow.
I know.
I was just listening to Genealogy about D. Kelly, and oh my gosh, what fun.
So good.
So good.
Yes.
This was definitely a crossover that was long overdue to happen. Genealogy with Trek Files. I'm so glad it did. And it was about D. Kelly because Larry is such a big fan.
Exactly. And there's more coming because I fully intend to do a Genealogy Trek Files crossover to have some documentation on the Trek Files about what's been covered in Genealogy. So stay tuned.
Fantastic. Yeah. Excellent. Well, all of this and more is available wherever you download your favorite podcasts, and you can see our whole lineup as well at podcast.roddenberry.com.
All right. Hey, before we get into the show and your calls, we already got some folks lined up. Yay, glad to see that. Very special thanks to our friends at Factory Entertainment for sponsoring the giveaway of the Borg Queen skull prop. She's not here anymore, Shar. She's not right there over my shoulder. I can't reach back and turn her on when I want to.
Are you sad?
I am a little bit sad. Yes. Yeah.
I would be if I were you.
But
I'm sure you got used to it.
I did. But I bet she's going to get a good home. So
no doubt.
Yeah. So thank you to Factory Entertainment for allowing us to give away the Borg Queen skull prop replica and not one but two hand phaser bottle openers. We are very excited here and now to announce the winners tonight. Shar, if you would do the honors, please.
Certainly. So the winner of the TOS hand phaser bottle opener is Dave in Bristow, Virginia.
Bravo.
The winner of the TNG hand phaser bottle opener is Patty Craig Riley in Salt Lake City, Utah. Woo-hoo.
Nicely done.
And finally, the grand prize winner of the Borg Queen Skull Signature Edition prop replica is Deb, and I hope I don't slaughter your last name, Mailman in Lebanon, Pennsylvania. Congratulations.
Bravo. And by the way, it is not too late to get on the action at Factory Entertainment. They have offered our listeners 10% off their first order with the code MissionLog. Now, you know what to do. You've got this. If you're in the chat, you can see that code by typing in !Factory Ent in the live chat. Remember, just hit !commands to see everything. But thank you so much, Factory Entertainment. Thank you, everybody who submitted your names and rolled the dice, and congrats to you three who won. Well done. Yeah. All right. I know that we have some callers lined up. Not too late to call in if you are missing out at the moment. By the way, Mike says, not Dave from Bristow. He owes me $20. So
that must be Captain Mike.
Yes, that is our very own Captain Mike.
Hey, how's it going, buddy?
Next week. All right. So heavy episode tonight. We're just going to blaze through the recap so we can get all of your fabulous calls in. Here we go. Strange New World, Season 2, Episode 8, Under the Cloak of War.
You got this.
Thank you. The Enterprise picks up a high-profile passenger, a Klingon defector turned Federation ambassador named Doc Ra, better known to many as the Butcher of Jagal, or just Ra if you're buds. Pike extends the usual red carpet treatment, but it's clear the crew is not on the same page. Ortegas, Chapel, and especially Mbenga barely conceal their discomfort. As Roch tries to make friends and talk peace, war flashbacks hit hard, especially for Chapel and Mbenga, who served together on Jagal and witnessed firsthand the carnage he left behind. We flash back to that brutal war zone where Chapel arrives to a chaotic field hospital run by Mbenga and his team. The bodies pile up, supplies are scarce, and when the worst cases can't be treated, they're preserved in the transporter buffer, something Mbenga has been working on because he's clever like that. Chapel quickly learns the horror of triage, and a battle-hardened Mbenga is already juggling his duties as a doctor, with whispers about his past as a deadly operative known as the Ghost. When Starfleet Black Ops ask him to take out the Klingon commanders, he refuses, until circumstances leave him no choice. Back in the present, Pike tries to smooth things over with a dinner party, but it doesn't go well. Ortega storms out, Chapel shuts down, and Roch is left philosophizing about redemption. Later, he spars with Mbenga in the gym, pitching a partnership to show the galaxy that two former enemies can build peace together. But the real story eventually comes out in a visit to sickbay. Roch didn't kill his men out of honor. He fled, and Mbenga was the one who took out the Klingon generals. He never claimed the credit because he was ashamed of what he had to do. Roch pushes too far, looking for forgiveness that Mbenga doesn't have. Chapel walks in just as the two struggle, and Roch ends up dead, stabbed with a Klingon dikta. Pike investigates, but between Chapel's testimony and an ambiguous forensic trail, no one can prove how the fight started. Mbenga won't say more, only that he didn't start it, and he's not sorry it ended. The end.
Ooh.
Yeah. We were talking before the show about how they placed this one right between two very lighthearted, fan favorite episodes.
Indeed.
And you and I both, I'm not going to say we forgot it entirely, but maybe we forgot the impact of this episode because of that.
Yes, that. Because really, I don't think the placement of this episode is any coincidence because it is a very heavy episode. And then next to it on each side are two very lighthearted, but also very beloved episodes of the newer Star Trek generation here. And so, yeah, it is a little easy, unfortunately, to overlook this unless you've watched the season many, 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 many times.
Yeah.
And I tell you what, though, I do not envy folks who are maybe binging Strange New World season 2 and gearing up for season 3, because I got a lot of whiplash going from those old scientists to this episode. Then we're going to go straight into Subspace Rhapsody and what?
It's that's a lot to take in. I'll tell you though that I think that this would be a beloved episode. Now we're going to get into what it all means and what the impressions of our listeners, viewers were. But I think one of the great things that this episode does, if you can, take it out of the context of the two episodes that sandwich it for right now, I think this episode falling in between the Klingon arc from Discovery and then all the Klingon stuff that we start to learn in the original series makes this much more of a standout episode. Again, kind of not clouded by, but as they maybe overwhelmed by these other very lighthearted episodes. But when you look at it like that and go, oh, okay, we reintroduce the brutality and the details of the Klingon War in Discovery. Then we get to see this. We get to see how it affected somebody on the Enterprise. Then when we get to TOS, and maybe some of the Klingon stuff doesn't play as well now as it did nearly 60 years ago when all of that was fresh. Now this gives that context. And now you get to see why was Kirk's Enterprise so concerned about Klingons and what that history was. So well done, Strange New Worlds, being able to bridge those gaps, I think. Yeah.
Absolutely. In the broader context, I'm so glad that you outlined that for us, just because it really does make a great bridge between all of these other interconnecting series on something that we think we know, but given a lot more detail here. And I don't know about you, John, but boy, do I really feel it. I mean,
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
episode does a great job of putting you there. And thankfully, I feel very happy and grateful to say I've never had post-traumatic stress disorder. I have never been sent to war, but this probably gives me as much of a clue as anything possibly can without having that experience.
They played the realism, and I think, well, to have an expert drop in and tell us what they think, let's welcome our first caller, Dr. Nani. Yeah, here we are talking about a an episode with some heavy psychological implications. What do you think?
That puts it mildly.
Yeah.
Yeah, indeed.
Yes, and nice to meet you, Shar. Since you
Yes, hello, nice to meet you.
Well, lots of psychology terms, like you said, post-traumatic stress for sure, coping mechanisms, many of them not good ones,
Mm.
Mm.
masking, where people are pretending to behave one way or another. But just in case any of my students are listening or watching, I figured I'd go with the term that comes up every single class, cognitive dissonance. With the
That's a
idea
good
Oh,
one.
two
yeah.
conflicting belief systems, right? So for Mbenga and Chappell and Ortega's, it's what they experienced in the war with their loyalty to Starfleet and to Captain Pike, right? So it's like you see Ortega's, circling outside of Captain's quarters, and it's all because she doesn't want to let down Pike, but at the same time, she understands what her limits are. And she's just like, I don't know if I can do this. And it makes, a lot of sense, which then connects us to last week's episode when we talked about acting as if, because, you always got to connect this week's lesson to last week.
Uh-huh. Right.
So,
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
which will be fake it till you make it, or in this case, fake it till you break it, because I
Yeah.
think laughing kind of early in
Yeah.
the episode. And so, they were trying to be okay with having a war criminal on board or trying to be okay with having been at war. But, I think it was too much. And understandably, after everything they all went through, that there's no way you can really pretend. And even Ra was pretending, right? Because he was pretending to be the Butcher of Jagal.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I realized he was blamed for it by his people, and then because of that, he kind of got ostracized by his people. So I don't really believe in any part of this that he's trying to like be the remorseful good guy, you know.
Yeah.
I think it's all an act. It's like, okay, I can't get attention back home anymore, so I gotta find someplace else where I can be the center of attention,
Yeah.
which does make me think, well, I'm not a clinical psychologist and I should not be trying to diagnose. I would assume that this character has some histrionic personality disorder traits.
Mm.
Possibly also
Hmm.
some narcissistic ones and some antisocial ones, given the whole,
Hmm.
well,
Yeah.
anyone who's not a Klingon soldier, so
Yeah. Wow.
Okay. That
yeah.
Yeah.
is a deeper analysis than what I went to, which is just he's seeking validation from people who cannot forgive him.
There is that also. I mean, but that's
Yeah.
actually part of, well, histrionic is it's like attention seeking to the nth degree. And so
Okay.
basically you can be doing it because you just want to be the center of attention, or in this case, you are trying to get validation. You're trying to be forgiven. But the only reason I think he wants to be forgiven is because he's being thrown into this Federation side because he's not welcome back on the Klingon side anymore. So,
Hmm.
Yeah.
it's not very it's there's nothing genuine in what he's doing, so it's kind of hard to, feel sorry for, at least I have trouble feeling sorry for him at all.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well,
I do.
yeah, I mean, his actions are very self-serving for him. At the same time, you kind of there is this question lingering. It's like, well, if he doesn't do this, then who? And is this convenient lie serving some greater purpose? And we have a lot of stories in Star Trek and in the real world where we might say, okay, well, yeah, we all sort of agree to this particular delusion, to whatever extent we can stomach it and maintain that cognitive dissonance in our heads because it actually serves some greater purpose. But then maybe somebody needs to come along and dismantle that particular fiction because the truth is more important. By the way, you said fake it till you make it. I wrote down this great line that Mbenga says to Ortegas: sometimes you need to pretend something long enough, it becomes the truth. And I love that. That is much more eloquent to me than fake it till you make it. I'm like, yeah, I'll use that one from now on. Yeah.
Dr. Nani, I have a question for you since you
Sure.
do teach this so much. One of my biggest gripes about Starfleet is the complete lack of mental health awareness and care. And
Yeah.
from that angle, do you suppose that there just really isn't still in this future any support for war veterans? Because that's
You know,
kind of what I'm getting out of it, and that makes me sad.
there really
Wow.
should be. I happen to know because Brandon was trying to organize this in the Earl Green room as to like who's going to say what so that we don't all step on each other's toes.
Hmm.
Someone else is going to speak about veterans' health, and so I
Okay.
don't want to go too far into that. But yes, they really should. So, it's hard for me to believe that that doesn't exist.
It's tough to
Because,
stomach, especially with an episode as intense as this.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Well, thank you for sharing your thoughts and your insight, your wisdom here. Nani, any parting shots before we say hi to our next caller?
Last thing I can think of, just with a couple moments, it's very important to understand your own boundaries and also to respect others, because if Ra had done that, he'd still be alive, getting to live his little, his spiel.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
He was so
Yeah.
aggressive.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
Agreed.
Mecca gave him plenty of time to like just no, don't talk to me, leave me alone. I don't want to, but didn't
He
listen.
did.
What
I
happened?
took
Yeah.
note.
Yeah. Could have just walked away. All right. Well, thank you so much.
All right.
Appreciate the call as ever. Take care. Till next time.
So
All
nice to meet
right.
you.
Okay, bye-bye.
All
Bye
right.
bye.
Bye. All right, Chris. Chris,
Hey,
what is
buddy.
on your mind?
Hello, good to see you guys. Yeah, I'm here. I've got a nice glass of Ractigino
Oh,
to
hey,
Nice.
send
hot or
out.
cold?
Good.
Yeah, cold.
Okay. Okay.
It's 90 degrees in the valley. I can't be that
Yeah.
hot.
Yeah, it's time for some iced Ractigino for
Yeah.
sure.
But yeah, so I just rewatched this before I hopped on, and the thing that stuck out most to me, it's a great episode. I love it a lot, and I get to the end, and I cannot decide if this is a tragedy or like a hopeful ending. Like it cuts either
Mm.
way, and
Hmm.
I'm choosing to believe it's a hopeful ending because I feel like that is more in line with the thing, like sort of ideology. But I was just curious because like you can read it either way. Is either like you live with the thing but you are not broken or that it like somehow fundamentally alters you. So I was curious if you guys had a reaction, sort of the ambiguity of that ending.
Whew.
Ooh,
Yeah. Yeah.
okay.
Go ahead.
Well, first and foremost, Chris, I would love to know where you get the hope angle from, because where I end up sitting with the end of this episode is I might be broken, but I keep going.
that's
Mm.
that's sort of what I was getting at, is this idea that, and the chapel says, like, it never leaves you, but that the fact that it never leaves you does not have to sort of ruin your life. You can sort of integrate it, I guess, is maybe the word I'm looking for. Sort of
Okay.
like make it doesn't have to sort of dominate you. It doesn't have to be I don't want to say disorder, but and I'm also maybe a little projecting that I want my Star Trek to have a nice happy ending. There may be a little of
Yeah.
that, but I do think that's the way I was coming from. Is that like you're choosing to believe that you can continue, and that this does not have to define you. How about that?
Oh, okay. Okay, that's a good angle. Love that.
I feel really bad for Mbenga. This guy is walking around with so much tragedy in his life. And God, at the end of the day, all he wants to do is just heal people and help out. And he keeps getting dragged into these situations where he can't, and he has to compromise his values. And I, there is a tragedy there for him. And Sharp, I'm so glad that you asked about mental health care in the future in Starfleet because he needs it.
Yeah,
Although
a
there
lot of
might
people
be,
do.
yeah, but there might still be some, if he admits to a crime, then, well, so I'm sure that even his future psychologist would have to report that. But I think if there is something hopeful here, if we look at the big picture, all right, Ra was a narcissist. He was a liar. All of these traits we can say about it doesn't mean that he deserved to die, although Mbenga says, not sad that he's dead,
Yeah.
So there's that sort of ambiguous feeling you have about him. But for the big picture, there's this other line, what is it? Pike, I believe, said people need saints. They need belief. Was that Pike?
No, that was Raw. That was in
That was
Yes,
Ra.
that was Raw.
That was Ra
That's the
who said
final
that. Okay.
scene.
Yeah, sorry,
Yeah.
putting that into Pike's mouth, but I think the point still serves that even if he's gone, okay, at worst, he becomes a martyr for Federation peace. And at best, I guess, well, the Klingons, a certain faction of Klingons just think like, oh, okay, good, that weirdo who is trying to make peace is gone. But he may have emboldened some other Klingons who are also on the outskirts of this level of diplomacy. Now, it'll take 80 plus years or however long to get to actual peace where you're going to have a guy like Worf serving. But there is the idea that we're left with here, like, no, there's still hope. There can still be Klingon and Federation peace, because this guy, as bad as he was, as misguided as he was, as self-serving as he was, he actually got his foot in the door. And maybe the casualty of that is Mbenga's sense of himself. Can he live with that? Well, there's a tragic end, but that's the tragic part for one person as opposed to potentially hundreds of millions.
This episode leaves so many questions open.
Yeah.
Just what is the fallout from this going to be? Not just personally for Mbenga, but also just larger things like Klingon Federation peace. Does this sabotage that for a little while? I'm sorry, sabotage.
Sabotage. Thank you for saying that correctly. Yes. Yeah.
Sorry about that. Does it prolong the conflict, the tension, the Cold War-esque kind of years until Star Trek 6, when really, you mentioned it in the intro, there's a lot of parallels between this episode and that.
I kept thinking of parallels to Star Trek 6. I also kept thinking of parallels now to Duet. Yeah, think about, here's this Klingon, just like our Cardassian, who pretended to be the butcher of Galatep, pretended to be the butcher of Jagal. And the difference there, though, is that Maratz was doing this out of guilt, and he was doing this out of the unpaid debt. This guy was just trying to save his own hide. So there's certainly less of a heroic angle on that. But look at the end for both of them. They both get stabbed. And the difference is at the end of Duet, sorry, spoilers, everyone who hasn't been following along, Kira is left there to hold his body and wonder, like, when will we get past this point where violence seems to be the only thing that we understand to close this chapter? And there's a real tragedy there. Here, that stabbing is less of a tragedy once we have understood the reality of his situation. Again, doesn't mean he deserved to die, but we all kind of take a step back from it and go like, well, was there a moral served here? Or at least is this an amoral proposition? If it's not immoral or moral, is it just amoral?
Well, that's the thing about war, isn't it? I mean, when your life is in danger, you have a level of desperation you reach as a person in survival mode that you would not otherwise reach under any circumstances. Things like morals and principles can just go straight out the window in the name of survival because your drive has just taken over.
Yeah. And I absolutely love the ambiguity that we don't know exactly what happened behind that screen.
Yes.
Brilliant. Thank you, writers, for doing that. By the way, gonna shout out here from Paul Wright about Duet. He's thinking that too.
Nice.
Paul, big DS9 fan. Chris, any other thoughts here before we go over to Brandon?
You talking about sort of this idea of like holding the two things together. Earl had kind of said this, but I was also thinking it. Rebecca has this line about like this, I can hold it in the abstract, but you know, also when you get down to the granular level, there are people on this ship who like cannot tolerate this. And it's, you have, both of those things are true. And you have to find a
Yes.
way to sort of balance them. Like, we do need saints, but at what cost? And
Yeah.
how does the Federation balance that? How does Pike as the captain balance it? You know, it's just like layers of the pyramid. So yeah, I just wanted to call that out.
Absolutely.
Nice.
Yeah, good mention from you, good mention from Earl. There's something to be said in all of these kind of mini arcs within this episode about right idea, wrong time, right idea, wrong place, maybe, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just all the angles. This episode does a great job of showing multiple angles, multiple points of view. It's not any one winner, it's just a very complicated situation.
I like stories where there isn't necessarily a singular line dividing the right or wrong choice. This one has multiple of those, which is great. And we can all agree, like, oh, okay, yeah, we should all be peaceful. We should all want diplomacy. But yeah, we should all want to put in the past what belongs in the past. But I can't do that right now. Yeah.
But when you've been through a war and you are traumatized from that, how
Yeah.
does that change your mindset? And can you let it go? And is it the right time? Have you processed enough to be able to even, like, as a professional, go to that dinner and, not have
Yeah.
it fall apart?
Yeah. Right. Right. All right, Chris, we're going to say goodbye for now. We're going to jump over to Brandon. So we'll see you next time, I hope.
Take
All
care,
right,
buddy.
will do.
All right.
See you around.
Take care. All right. Speaking of psychology,
Yeah.
No pressure.
Hey, welcome.
Hey, hi.
All right.
How's it
What is
going?
this?
It's going all right. Yeah, it's good. I'm actually kind of glad that I'm in the middle of the callers this time, much like this episode, so that I can be kind of a downer and then
Okay.
really put that on everyone else to bring
Oh.
the tone back up.
Oh,
All right,
great.
you hear that, next
All
callers?
right.
No pressure.
No pressure.
Well, be a downer then. Let's go.
Yeah,
All right,
here we go.
Commodore Downer. So there are a couple things that I wanted to talk about that I thought this episode did really, really well. And one of them was portraying the trauma for medical personnel. Because especially we see that with Chapel, and Mbenga's got this other level because he was in combat and he had to do, very much echoing the line from The Next Generation, I don't hate you, I hate what you made me become. But so I have never been, I'm not a veteran, I have never seen combat, but I'm a former EMT. And it is very hard to communicate to people what things actually affect you. Just like Chapel was like, could not explain it to Spock, and Spock could not get it. It was data to him. Mm-hmm. And it's very difficult to, and I obviously do not speak for all medical providers everywhere, but I saw a lot of that with Mbenga, because people think that, whenever I tell people that I used to be an EMT, oh, you must have seen some crazy stuff, or on Reddit there's like, what's the worst thing you've ever seen, which is like, hey, go ahead and like, could you all relive your worst moments for our entertainment?
Great idea. Yeah,
super great. But everybody thinks that it's going to be like the grossness and blood and guts, but medical personnel learn to detach from that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the knowledge that comes from what they're seeing. You see that moment with Mbenga in the morgue. It's not the injuries or what killed that kid that he was talking to. That's not what hits him. It's that kid. It's that he talked to that kid. It's that he knows.
Yeah.
He knows what happened to that kid and everything that signifies. And when people ask in these posts, they want to hear blood and guts, or they want to hear the like wacky stories, which is, if I'm feeling very generous, I'll give them. And it's a great story. Oh, it involves nudity at midnight in a Target parking lot and a flustered rookie cop and an intern solving all of the problems we were experiencing with the patient by just asking the patient politely to stop. And it's a great story.
That's how it goes, right?
Yeah, it's great. It's because they don't want the real answer.
Yeah.
They don't even, like, people actually get really unhappy if you point out you don't want the real answer. They but sometimes, just like Chapel tells Spock, you can't get it. Sometimes I will tell them. I will at least be on it. I won't act. I have never actually answered that question, honestly. But I will tell them, I promise you, you don't want to know. You can't know. You can't understand.
Yeah.
It's something you heard, not even something I saw. You cannot understand hearing something that turns your blood to ice and your spine to glass until you have heard that and thanked God that you were not done checking out your ambulance that day. It wasn't even my call. And it is a feeling I have not felt before or since. And it's like, how do you communicate that to somebody?
I don't think you can.
Yeah.
One of my favorite quotes in the whole universe is, "For those who understand, no explanation is necessary. For those that don't, none will do."
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I think it's funny. I realized as I was thinking about all of this stuff, I have not had another EMT or paramedic ask me, what's the worst thing you ever saw? Never.
They don't need to know.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to know. They've got their own stuff. And I'm not trying to, oh man, see, told you, down it. But I really do think that it's it is hard to communicate that. And at the same time, they did such an amazing job of showing what it was for Mbenga and for Chapel. And I really admired that, because it's not, I think about the shows that have portrayed what the difficult experiences are for medical personnel, and like when the things that pop to mind as like really earnest and really good about showing that so far now, I've got Strange New Worlds and, believe it or not, Scrubs.
Have you watched The Pit yet?
No.
You gotta watch The Pit.
Okay, making a
It's
note
probably
right
the
now.
closest, like most accurate portrayal of what life is truly like for those who work in healthcare. But I would love to compare notes later from your perspective to know if that's really true or not.
Yeah, I mean, it's I would love that.
That'd be great.
But yeah, so that's what I kind of wanted to bring to this. I was like, let's bum everybody out.
Yeah, well done.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
It's important to recognize that and understand that, because healthcare, man, it's got to be so rough, especially starting with COVID, but it wasn't even great to begin with before that, but it's only gotten worse. People are strained, people are angry, you're dealing with, who knows what. And, at the expense of your emotional stability till the point where you burn out. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a lot for anybody.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I will also say, like, I don't want to make it sound like working in medicine will leave everybody a haunted shell of a person, or that I am that. It was an amazingly rewarding, like, career. I, for the right kind of person, absolutely support them pursuing it. But I think that there's a lot of, and you can ask people, like, is there any story you do like to tell? Of course. But I think it's just very interesting to see from that third person there, and see it really portrayed and be like, that is what I was thinking of, is that sort of like everything that around what's going on is really what affects the providers and everything like that.
Yeah, and it's not all a massive downer. Thank you for clarifying that point, because of course there's rewarding moments. Why?
Absolutely.
You got to have some reason to keep coming back and doing a job that difficult every day.
Yes. Yeah. And I've told people when they ask about it, I've said, the greatest thing about that job is you get to show up on what could be the worst day, or even potentially could have been the last day of somebody's life, and make it the day that everything turned around. You can make them glad that you were there. Yeah. And that's awesome. That is an amazing thing to be able to do, and is worth the bad stuff, and it's worth the really obnoxious stuff, which is like the majority of it. But yeah. And that's what I had for you guys today.
Well, see, look, you managed to unbum us out at the end there.
Yes, you left us with a message of hope.
You did.
Well done.
Very good.
That's awesome. Go me.
Yeah.
All right.
Good work.
Nicely
Good
done,
stuff,
Brandon.
man.
No, seriously, thank you so much for your perspective and insight.
Oh,
Yeah,
my
I appreciate
pleasure.
you sharing that.
Always
Always
welcome.
love talking to you guys.
Excellent. Well, likewise, thank you, and we'll see
Take
you
care.
next time. All
Yeah,
right,
see
take
ya.
care. Hey, well, this is going to be the worst transition ever. So that we can do a quick bit of business. But you know what? We'll bring a light mood to things now. We can talk about the fun of keeping clean with maybe a little Star Trek themed soap, right? Star
Yeah.
Trek inspired. If everybody types !bold bubbles, what are they going to find, Shar?
Oh my God. First off, is that just not the coolest thing? I've got a little command now.
You have
But
your very own
yes,
command.
you
Yes.
can get clean and you can do it with Trek inspired soap because I make that. It's a
Yeah.
little side hustle I do, and I do things inspired by the Star Trek universe. Everything from Seven of Limes to, Captain Picard and Riker, a lot of your favorites. I try to rotate things, just keep things new and interesting and different with a whole array of scents. So if you like floral, earthy, cologne-y, I've got it all. If unisex, unscented. In fact, I just cut a batch of unscented. I'm gonna kind of rebrand my unscented a little bit. I'm gonna have a totally naked bar. I'll call it Odo Etal again.
Nice.
And
Nice.
I did rename it Plain and Simple Unscented, but I decided I'm gonna have two unscented varieties and did
Oh.
Shades of Gray, not like that, but Shades of Gray, unscented, plain, simple, unscented, like Garrick, because
Yeah.
it looks Cardassian.
I love it. Excellent. Well, and you hand make them. They are fantastic. And if people want to find out more, !bold bubbles, and I believe our mission log listeners get a discount.
You do? Yes. You can go put in the coupon code Roddenberry at checkout. You can save 15% on your order. And you can also keep getting discounts if you sign up for the newsletter. That is the only place where I put most of my discounts. So if you're a bargain shopper like me and you're looking for a deal, that's the place to get it. Plus, then you get the lowdown on what is coming down the pipes. And if you're going to Vegas in August, I will be doing a special promotion for people who are attending Star Trek Las Vegas, and I will bring soap to you if you put in an order. So stay tuned for that because I'll have instructions on that soon.
Amazing. Might as well just say it makes a great gift because it
That
does.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Treat
Right.
yourself, put it in your sonic shower. You can put it in somebody else's. I mean, yeah.
Fun.
I don't ask
All
for
right.
details beyond that.
But you could. Well,
don't,
thanks for
though.
that, Shar. Again, !bold bubbles.
Yay.
Yeah.
All right. So, let's talk about the other thing that we love, which is one of my
Ooh.
favorite corners of the entire universe.
Yes. Not just the internet.
Not just the internet, but it is on the internet, and that is the Mission Log Discord.
Yeah, because social media is chaotic and hellish and can burn you out. But we have the refuge. We have a private, thoughtful, hilarious spot for you that is the Mission Log Discord.
Yeah, and we have something that is so fun coming up for the 4th of July holiday. Our very own technical director and host of Genealogy, Earl Green, shout out, has put
Yes.
together a playlist of rare and lost Gene Roddenberry shows, along with vintage commercials, which are so much fun,
Yep.
and other surprises. And this is going to be a mega-sized playlist, starting on July 3rd, running through the 6th. So
Yes.
the whole weekend, really, and then some. And there's something for everyone, treasures you won't find anywhere else. So if that's not any reason to join the Mission Log Discord, if you're not already there, come on, what are
Yeah.
you waiting for?
I mean, that is such a cool event that we do, a few times a year, and Earl is always tweaking that playlist. Now, that playlist, not to mention all the fun of just hanging out and commenting and,
It's so much fun.
That really is cool. And that is exclusive to our Patreon members who can access it all through Discord. And speaking of exclusive, STLV is coming up. It's right around the corner. And one other way to entice you all who haven't joined Patreon yet, it's our little secret. Our friends Paul and Michelle Harveth, They and a wonderful team of mission loggers plan a private Patreon event every year to kick off STLV. This is the highlight of the convention. So if you've been holding out to join Patreon and you are planning on joining us at STLV, now is the time to join. You'll get more details after you do. We're dropping the link in the live chat, of course, and just click on that and join us. Patreon.com/missionlog, or I bet you know it already, ! Patreon.
Hey, yes.
All right.
Love those exclamation points.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hope to see you all there if you're not already there. I mean, that's your key to, I don't know, just the really heart of Mission Log.
Exactly.
And it also keeps the lights on, keeps this whole podcasting thing going that we're doing, and that's a lot of fun. So, hey, helps out.
Love it. All right. Well, let's get back to the show with more fun comedy under the cloak of war. Yeah. Well, let's welcome Alan. Alan, how's it going tonight?
I mean, what else? What more can you say? I mean, it's great to be live on a Monday night with Mission Log. And,
hey, thank you. All right.
And I was feeling a little down there for a little bit, but at the end, Brandon just gave us a little ray of hope there.
Yeah.
So I thought
right.
I thought for a second Star Trek had taken us from Boimler to Bummer, but I guess not.
That's the headline. Well done.
Yeah.
Nice.
But yeah, I think that this was an episode that it definitely took me by surprise when we first saw it back when season 2 first came out, and didn't quite know what to think about it. But in sort of processing it and rewatching it this week, and certainly hearing you guys talk about it, hearing what Brandon had to say and Dr. Nani and Chris earlier, it is one that's sort of, it's getting me to think about this in a different way. And I think a lot of us are just sort of like, I think we were just all caught off guard by the bleak originally, and there's a lot of bleak.
Yeah.
But I think there is a lot to think about and a lot to consider as far as what it says about the things like Brandon was talking about, the realities of the medical profession and what you have to sort of like compartmentalize and deal with on a not so irregular basis.
Yeah.
The realities of war and the impact that it can have on people. And John, just earlier when you were talking about how this sort of like bridges the gap for Klingons, I was like, yes, in Discovery we have sort of the traditional brutality of the Klingon that I think we've sort of gotten used to in a way, but this dude is sort of like the proto version of the conniving, devious Klingon that dominated TOS. He's
nice connection.
He's the guy who's on the planet with oh God, what's his name? Kirk's friend, Tyree, and he's given guns to the village people.
Right.
He's like, hey,
The village people.
Yeah, well, that's what happens.
Yeah, yeah.
Give guns
Yeah.
to the village people, and it's a whole
they-
interstellar thing. Yeah,
that's a joke from 10 years ago. But,
it is. But it still works.
It's still
works.
funny.
but yeah, it's like, hey, these will work for you. Get rid of your friends in the hill people. But yeah, or trying to usurp the Organians, or disguising yourself as a Federation guy so you can go and steal the grain from the space station.
Yeah.
Or that's
It's
kind
them.
of exactly.
Yeah.
That's what they were in the 60s, and this sort of like does that. And gosh, Robert Wisdom, just looking, every look is just that sort of like very pleasant, but like very sort of menacing,
Mm-hmm.
just, sort of like dead-eyed stare with a smile. And it's
Yeah.
like,
Mm,
ooh, what does that mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. It's
It's
So,
it,
uncomfortable.
he's great. He's so
absolutely.
great in this. And I think watching to the end, as we did studying it for this, I would definitely say the replay value on this episode is high because now you
Hmm.
get to
Oh yeah.
rewatch his performance, knowing all the layers that he's playing and the story he's hiding. So,
Oh
so
yeah.
good. Alan, thank you so much. We got a lot of
Yeah.
calls lined up, so we're going to jump right over to our next, but hope to
Hey,
see you
before I
next week.
go,
Yeah.
shout out to Riverside and Trek Fest 40.
Oh, that's right. You were there over the
Yep.
Yes,
weekend.
there
I
we
want to give
go.
I want to give a special mention to two groups. First of all, our special guests, Dominic and Connor, and Lolita, who brought them out there
Lovely.
for being
Nice.
such troopers and staying out there all that time in the Ractigino level heat that we had in Riverside over the weekend,
Oh
and
boy.
also to the bar and wait staff at Riverside's La Chiva Loca for keeping us fed during a very busy lunch rush. So
Nice.
Nice.
I love it. All right. Thank you for that report, Alan. Love
with
it.
that,
Love.
assimilator.
All right. Take care, Alan. We'll see you next time. All right. Let's welcome John Arminio to the show. Welcome, John. How's it
Hello.
going?
Hi.
Hey.
Yeah, I'm gonna bring the bummer
Hey,
too. I think
All
with
right.
this
All
episode.
right.
well, we had Commodore Bummer, so
Yeah,
I guess we'll make you Admiral Bummer. Yeah. What do you
yeah.
got?
Yeah, the true admiral. I couldn't help but think about like the challenges of veterans in particular when it comes to healthcare.
Hmm.
In this episode, I'm the son and brother of veterans, and my when my brother left the service, he spent a lot of his time in PTSD counseling as well as sexual assault counseling. And one of my frustrations with this episode is that like you don't need to have combat experience to have PTSD.
Hmm.
Good
Like
point.
Brandon talked about,
Yeah.
medical personnel have PTSD, like victims of abuse have PTSD, and so you know, Dr. Mbenga doesn't need to be the ghost
Yeah.
with blood dripping down his face to
Right.
experience the horrors of war. Um,
Truth.
Yeah.
just being there in that medical tent with this nonstop influx of wounded and dead, that's enough.
Yeah.
Um,
Truly. Yeah, that was a
Hmm.
lot in itself.
yeah. A- And, I can't help but connect this episode watching it now with like what's going on in this country, like with the way the administration is just determined to cut medical benefits, including care to veterans, like all the problems with healthcare, with caring for veterans or caring for the victims of armed conflict, whether you're civilian or military, are going to be exacerbated by what the administration is doing. And it's pretty infuriating, growing up with Star Trek and hoping for that Star Trek future, and now like at 40, I'm
Hmm.
watching this country backslide and like abandon like its moral principles. And obviously America has this great long list of atrocities in its past, but one would hope that we could learn from that, and
Sure.
Yeah.
we're not. And at least, and with Star Trek, at least it's showing us a way forward and giving us hope. But watching it now, it was very bleak,
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
comparing to what's happening right now.
It's tough. It's
Yeah.
tough. I feel that, John. It's really hard to see what's happening in the news on a daily, sometimes hourly basis, compared that to the Star Trek future that we all wish for and would like to see happen in our time today, which it's not going to probably. And that's a lot to process. It's getting worse, not better.
Yeah.
John, I can't wait for you to hear next week's episode of Mission Log
Yeah.
when we do critical care.
Ooh,
Oh,
yes.
okay. I'm looking forward to it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That may be a double length Mission Log After Dark. We'll see.
Okay.
Ooh.
Yeah.
And just one more
Mhm.
existential, like hour-long discussion topic that I'll shove real quick.
All right.
There is the subject of forgiveness in this episode, and I think, Star Trek has tackled that topic when it comes to like war atrocities in the past, like you discussed with Duet. But I think what's essential, and I think what Raw failed to take into account, that before forgiveness, you need confession, you need repentance, and you need making recompense. So like, if like, who is forgiving you if you're not honest with the things that you've done in your past?
Right.
Yeah.
So like whether it's a nation or whether it's an individual, there has to be a coming clean and an owning up and like making right as best you can. Like you can never like pay off the debt of a massacre or what have you, but you should at least own up to what you've done, and then it's up to those victims to then grant forgiveness. You can't just arbitrarily ask one person or one governing body. It's a long, painful process.
Well said.
Agreed.
Yeah. Thank you for that, John. Appreciate it. And we will see you next time, I hope.
I appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Man.
Take care. Bye. All right. Let's bring in Jim. Jim, happy belated birthday again to you. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Hey.
Yeah. So what's on your mind tonight? I see you're Lower Decks themed. Like
gotta have a little happy theme with all
again.
this
Bring a little
downer
levity.
talk.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. It's
Lower
heavy
Decks
stuff.
is joy. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I thought, and I think we've discussed the war effort aspect of this like to death, but I got to do a little more of it. Like, I thought this episode tied in greatly to like several episodes of Deep Space Nine. It's like the siege of AR 558, or the battle to the Strong.
Yeah,
sure,
and a couple others that I can't even remember because it touches on the themes of like how war can affect you mentally and physically, and how it pushes you into situations like you've never been before and you shouldn't be. Like when Chapel arrives on scene and she thinks she's just gonna be a nurse, boom. Without even knowing, she's suddenly automatically the head nurse.
Yeah.
Right. Welcome.
Yeah.
Now get to work.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and also, I don't think we can do this without mentioning Clint Howard. Perfect performance once again.
Clint Howard. How good is he here? Oh, what fun.
Oh, good. Yeah, I read a little bit about him, and I forget off the top of my head, but he appeared in so many different series in Star Trek, and he has the longest so far run between his first appearance and his most recent appearance. Something like
I think he's been in like 4 different series.
Yeah. But his first appearance was in 1966.
Yeah. It's going to be tough to break that streak.
Yeah, nobody else has that distinction.
No one else can.
He had the advantage of being 6 years old at the time, but
Hey.
Yeah, he was great. Well, Jim, thank you so much for your insights. I appreciate it. All
right.
right.
Always a blast.
We'll see you next time and see you on the Discord. Take care.
See ya.
All right. Paul Harveth, welcome to the show.
Hello, Paul.
There's my favorite people. How are you guys?
Hey.
Likewise, right back at you. How you doing tonight?
Well, I'm doing well. I want to make sure that people know for our Patreon party, you need to be on my list. If you're not on my list, you're not getting in. So find a way to get a hold of me. Do the Discord, look at the STLV thread, or on the Patreon thread. It will be there very soon. So keep your eyes on Patreon if you're not a Discord person.
Great.
Okay.
Great.
Cool. Couple items. Didn't rewatch this episode. It was too painful to rewatch, but I have 2 items that come from here. Number 1, be careful who you talk to and what you say to them, particularly these days, because you don't know their triggers.
Good call.
Well said. Yeah.
I've had to leave a social community in the past year because of that exact thing. And I tell you, when you get older and those triggers get a little itchier, you just got to be careful what you say to people. Excuse me.
Very well said. Yeah.
And if you could enlighten me, is there ever been such a whiplash back and forth in TOS and Next Gen? Maybe DS9 with the baseball episode in the middle of a war, but this one, I mean, you have two highly rated episodes. Actually, I looked them up.
Yeah.
Last week's episode rated 8.9 on IMDb. This one was 8.2. Much different reasons, but then we drop to 6.8 for the musical episode. It wasn't everybody's cup of tea, and then back up.
Oh,
yeah, it was the lowest rated episode of the season.
Oh wow!
The certain fans love it, right, because of the esoteric nature, and then we end up in an 8.6. But this one ranks, pretty high in the top half. Can you tell me where we've been through this before in Star Trek? This kind of whipsaw.
Jeez.
All that happens, Paul, is that the whiplash theme that we discussed in genealogy recently plays in my head. It's just going whiplash, whiplash, whiplash.
Well, it's interesting. If you take Star Trek 2, 3, and 4 as a trilogy, you don't get the whiplash, but you certainly get to let all the steam off by the time you get to Star Trek 4. So you had really strong, dramatic, heavy movie with Star Trek 2, heavy action adventure in there too. And then Star Trek 3, very introspective, but heavy drama. And of course, what happens to Kirk's son. Then you get to really lighten things up with 4. But then you go back to, something heavy. We're not going to cast aspersions about the production quality, but, heavy ideas of Star Trek 5. But in terms of just like a weekly series going that far back and forth, I would love to hear what people say in the chat about that, if there are specific moments they remember. Right now, where we are in season 7 of Voyager, I think there are quality differences where you have heavy, dramatic, well-produced, thoughtful episode followed by something that is just not that good, but but they didn't nail or attempt a tonal change with that. Like, now we're skewing over to comedy to lighten things up between these heavy episodes. Earl is dropping and saying DS9 in the cards into that season finale right after it really pops the clutch. So that, not wrong there. That is definitely a shift in pace for that show too. Yeah, but
if I could leave you with this too, I mean, we got that to think about, but let's bring along the parallels between La'an and Chapel now. We weren't aware that Chapel was this traumatized in her life, right?
Yeah.
But we knew La'an was, and so now these similarities are there. Pretty interesting that these actors, go into these dark places and then come back to these lighter places, and they're asked to do this week to week.
Yeah.
It's sort of it's great work by the actors. Really tough on the fans, particularly. Here's 10 episodes every other year or whatever. It's kind of a lot to absorb.
Yeah, that's the thing. And I think we've beat that drum a lot here, is to say 10 episodes when you're trying, particularly with Strange New Worlds, where it is an anthology. Well, not strictly an anthology, but anthology-ish in that you have episodic shows as opposed to serialized. And they have felt the freedom to be so experimental on Strange New Worlds, which I think is great. And it hews very true to TOS in that regard, but TOS had the benefit of 26 episodes a season, separated by 3 or 4 months. So you can accept the changes in tone, I think, much easier. With Strange New Worlds, that's a much harder hill to climb. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Maul. Great to see you.
Take care. Yeah, likewise. Be good, Paul. We'll see you next time.
See you next time.
All right. Take care. Let's wrap things up with Mark. Mark, how you doing tonight?
Hello.
I'm doing good, John. And hello, Shar.
Hey, Mark.
What is on your mind?
I was just thinking how Strange New Worlds, with its semi-connection to TOS, really can tie this back into the original series, where when that in the 1960s they had difficulty being able to talk about the Vietnam War or even the Korean War, and I feel this episode, if you slot it in the context of the original series and look at if this is taking place before TOS, it kind of fits into that Cold War mindset that was happening in the original series, where they couldn't talk about these things, and you got the chance. They now with modern Trek, you get that chance of things that I'm sure Gene Roddenberry would have loved to have talked about issues like this that was happening in the Vietnam War, of where certain issues like this show up, especially once the war closed down with POWs and a host of other things that happened, even in the Second World War with the Japanese treatment of prisoners of war. It ties well into this and the experiences of that 1960s thing. And I think of, is it the Omega Glory of the one where it's the where Kirk starts reading the U.S.
Constitution, of course. Yeah.
Constitution, and I just think of that for this, of how because of the way TV was at the time, Trek never got to do something like this episode in the 60s, but now we have, and it kind of helps fill in characters, especially the two characters that this episode primarily focus on, both showed up in the original series, and later on, and I can't help but think that it's a chance to not only fill in that character thing, but it's also a chance to be able to discuss situations and things that they couldn't in the past, but we can now. To repeat myself on that thing, and I think that's one of the neat things of how TV and how we identify and change things. We have a chance to do it, just like to talk about BSG for a second, because I just watched the miniseries recently. That entire two-part miniseries is full of PDS episodes. The nuking of the 12 colonies by the Cylons, leaving the non-FTL ships around, and there's a girl that dies playing with her teddy. There's very much that PDS moments, and then the battle itself of the hopeless situation, and you didn't see that back in the 1970s with the original Battlestar Galactica, but you did with the reimagined, and I think that ties in nicely to how, thanks to conflicts or other things, that how we understand conflicts or other things, and being more open about my side's not right, and making war much more than just seeing it in black and white of how we saw like World War One and World War Two. I think it really does help make be able to make Star Trek deeper and fill in those missing voids. And then of course you and even if you look at 80s and 90s Trek, they don't really they only started exploring this, which then they had that break where you could more talk about the issues. And I think of even modern conflicts like Afghanistan, where Canadian military was bombed by American planes, and how that caused PTSD for a lot of troops, and that conflict caused it, and the craziness of those conflicts that tied into the early war on terrorism, and how that caused issues that some people have also talked about. And I think that's why Star Trek's so good, is it has a chance to be able to talk about these issues in the context of its time, in this case, the Klingon War, but it's clearly building on conflicts in the last century that we've done, because there wasn't almost a decade where from 1901 to 2001 where there wasn't a decade of conflict, and even now, and I think Star Trek can pick up on, bring those all together to talk about this for that one, and I think that's what makes
it's interesting.
so powerful.
It's interesting to me how So Star Trek has this legacy built in, doing socio-political commentary in its episodes. That doesn't mean every episode all the time, but certainly it is there, and it is there by design. And as those conversations get more complex in the real world, as our understandings change in the real world, then the scripts also reflect that. So what's nice is to see this kind of consistency where, okay, you can go back to TOS addressing issues like the Vietnam War, fast forward nearly 60 years, and you have shows that have in multiple series have touched upon things like PTSD and reassimilating back to sort of quote unquote normal life after these experiences, which I think then makes it so much more interesting to go back to a show like TOS, look at a character like Chapel or look at a character like Mbenga and go, oh, wow, now I can look at that informed by everything that was written later. It's a really nice cyclical kind of storytelling, you know?
Yes, I want to do exactly that, what you just said. Having rewatched this episode today now, I want to go back and look at the original series with this context.
Mbenga's only in 3 or 4 episodes, maybe at the most?
It can be a quick little marathon, sure.
Yeah,
this episode says so much just about war in general and how it does not leave you, as Chapel says. It can break people. It changes people, like it or not. I mean, Mbenga says at the very top of not the very top, but in one of the flashbacks toward the beginning, he hopes that he can come back unscathed and go back home as if it never happened. And of course it can't.
Right.
And it won't.
Yeah, of course. Mark, thank you. Okay, yes, you showing off the Blu-ray set.
Blu-ray
TOS.
the original series for TOS.
That's the way to watch it. All right, we got to go tonight. Thank you so much for calling, and we'll see you again soon. Shar, thanks so much. Boy, there was so much to cover here. I feel like we could do this for another hour, but we can't.
Easily. This episode is rich, but we got things to do, unfortunately. We got to cut off the YouTube thing.
We do.
Machine, let it go burr.
All right. Well, thanks for joining me tonight. We'll do this again, I hope.
Thank you. I hope so as well.
All right. Well, Mission Log Live is produced by Roddenberry Entertainment. Technical production on Mission Log and Mission Log Live is by the inextricable Earl Greens. I'm going to stumble over my own words. Thank you. I am a professional. Be sure to visit podcast.roddenberry.com for the latest from Roddenberry Podcasts. If you would like to support Mission Log directly, give us a look at patreon.com/Mission Log. Thank you to everyone who joined us live or later. Hey, next week, please welcome co-host Mike Richards and Heather Ray Barker, along with special guest Bill Walkoff, to discuss Subspace Rhapsody. We'll see you all then.